Friends, let us remain standing as we read from the Gospel of Luke. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Before y'all are seated, take a minute and greet one another with the peace and love of Jesus Christ.
Friends, please join me in a spirit of prayer. Our gracious Sovereign and our God, assist me to proclaim, to spread to all the world abroad the honors and glories of thy name. Amen. Friends, have you ever been going in the wrong direction and needed to turn around? Have you ever been going one way and needed to go in another way? Recently, I heard a story. It is a well-worn preacher story, but I'm going to pretend like it's a real story, okay? I got a call from a couple, and her husband, who's getting old, wanted to go to a doctor's visit by himself down in the medical center. And his wife knew that meant he was going to be driving down old US Highway 90. Have y'all been down South Main with all the traffic and everything? And she heard on the radio that there was a car going the wrong way on US Highway 90. And so she called, and her husband sat there and said, "One car going the wrong way, there are hundreds of them." Right? Recently, I was over with my mom for her birthday, which was really fun to get to celebrate. And my nephew, Aiden, is turning 13, and he wants to start learning how to drive. And it got me thinking about learning to drive. I told him that as soon as he gets a little bit taller, right, than his mom and my mom, that in those feet can kind of reach the pedals, I'm going to get him started in a parking lot so he can kind of get a feel for the vehicle and how to do it. And it reminded me of one of the stories of a bad time, and I think I shared it once the first few weeks I was here, but I'm going to share it again of when I found myself going the wrong way. Now, y'all had driver's permits, right? Did everybody here go through that process? You know, you get a driver's permit and then you get a driver's license. Well, in the state of Texas at the time I was growing up, and I think the law is the same, if somebody who was a licensed driver was 18 or older sitting in the passenger seat, they would count for you, and you could be training to drive with them. Now, if all your buddies and friends looked like they were over 18, did that count? Well, kind of. And so here we were. I was working, and I was able to buy a vehicle from my parents, this 1979 beautiful Grand Marquis, this Mercury. It was a boat to drive. It was old when I got it. And we had been coming down the Southwest Freeway, heading back into our neighborhood there in First Colony, and I was making a left onto Williams Trace Boulevard, and it was about as busy as it is nowadays. And just before it is normal this time of year, there had been kind of a gully washer that came down, and all it did was it got that asphalt wet enough that it was covered with a sheen of oil that had bubbled to the top, and it was really slick. So there I was at this stoplight. Did I mention all my buddies were in the car? And this big old boat with a great engine. And so what did I do when the light went green? I floored it a little bit. A little bit to my surprise, the back of the car swung around and its momentum carried us until, like the guy on the phone call, I was facing those hundreds of cars coming my way. My friend Jeremy was kind of underimpressed with my driving. I think the exact quote was, "Guys, we're gonna die." Something about like that. In the moment, we just had a quick break and I hit the gas and we made a left and got out of there, mainly because of the grace of the oncoming traffic not wanting to be hit themselves. But have you ever been headed the wrong way and know it? And has it ever been so bad that whether they were sitting in the back seat or whether they were facing you from every direction, the crowd gathered knew how bad you had messed up? You see, that's where the story of Zacchaeus is. In Luke, up to this point, we get groups that grumble. The Pharisees grumble and the scribes grumble. And they're always grumbling at the sinners and the tax collectors. But did you hear today's text? When Jesus sees and stops to acknowledge Zacchaeus, we're told the whole crowd grumbled. Even the sinners and the tax collectors knew how bad Zacchaeus was. He was a chief tax collector. He had defrauded all of them. And he was a bad, bad guy. Now, here I've got to warn you. Every time I say the word Zacchaeus, you're going to hear a little Vacation Bible School song in your head if you were raised in church. And it goes, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. I mean, many of y'all have heard that, right? He climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. You know the song. Many of you, like me, were raised in churches where they would have like a little kind of cardboard tube and some trees there, and whoever the shortest person was at the church, they'd have them stand by the tree, and then there would be somebody playing Jesus, usually one of the pastors, and then they'd have 2 or 3 people around them to this country little site where this poor lone tree had Zacchaeus in it. Okay? And if we're going to get into what the story actually says, we're going to have to leave that a bit behind. So don't diss on the song. It's a good song, but we need to see it as it's unfolding in the text. Unfolding in the text, you have Jesus entering Jericho, going into the city. And like when he was in Capernaum, we were told that the crowds were so tight and so many people were wanting to be there and see Jesus that, remember those 4 friends who had a friend on a mat who couldn't answer? They had to carry him up on a roof and then tear open the roof and then lower down their friend to be in the presence of Jesus. It's one of those kind of crowds there in the city streets. So when the text tells us that indeed Zacchaeus runs, here think of somebody cutting through back alleys and going different directions and heading in this way and that way. Okay, he's dodging the crowds, trying to get ahead, and he's thinking, okay, well, 2 blocks over and 1 block up, there's a place with a tree, and I might be able to get there before the crowd gets there. And there he arrives at that tree and he climbs his way up. I wonder as the crowd approached kind of in front of and behind Jesus, as it kind of moved along the city streets, did they notice Zacchaeus at all? If they did they go, hey, do you know who that is? Why is he wanting to see Jesus? Or did they even care that he was there? The text doesn't tell us. But everyone is shocked when they're at the bottom of the tree where Zacchaeus is trying to see Jesus. Jesus stops and calls out to Zacchaeus. Come down immediately, Zacchaeus. I must go to your house today. Today. And of course, with gladness in his heart, he drops out of the tree and he's ready to go. I wonder if the laundry had been done. What do you think? Oh, he's a rich guy. He probably had some other people do it for him. I wonder, was the yard mowed? Well, he probably had people to take care of that. Would the table be set? Could he get prepared for Jesus? I mean, I don't know about this. We're in a time of Lent, a time of preparing for Jesus and allowing Jesus into the places of our lives. I mean, if Jesus is coming to your house, how would it go? I mean, can he see all your text messages? Right? Would he be happy if he looked at who you're meeting with in your day planner? Could he read your emails? Hear your phone calls? See your Google search? Right? Do I need to keep going, or y'all got the point, right? You see, he's coming over to the house. So what does Zacchaeus immediately think? Let me make this right. I'm going to give half my money to the poor, because that will make things right. If I just give away all my stuff, God will bless and meet me, right? Well, friends, I just want to let you know that in Luke, for anybody who is going to follow Jesus, how much are they supposed to give away? All of it. But at least Zacchaeus will give away half. And then if I defrauded anybody, I'll pay them back 4 times what I cheated them at, right? How many of y'all are paying taxes in the next week or two? Anybody? Right? Don't forget, they moved it back a little for Easter, but you didn't get that long, okay? So get them done, all right? We got taxes coming up. If anybody's paying income taxes, you need to do that. But anybody getting a check back from the government? Do you think Uncle Sam is going to give you back 4 times what you owe? I mean, it seems like the right thing, like Zacchaeus is doing something to try to make up for what has been done. But who's the only one who can make things right? He's right there in the center of the scene at the base of the tree. Only Jesus can correct the wrongs. Only Jesus can make us right. Only Jesus can heal the brokenness of our heart. And yes, that may lead us to need to do things that change who we've been and what we've done. It may lead us to do things we never dreamt possible. But it's Jesus who is the source of our salvation, not what we do, not making things right. It is Jesus who heals us by grace, not because of what we do, but because we recognize who we find salvation in. And so there at the tree, I find just a whole bunch of stories about people who become transformed. And so I'm going to give you kind of 2 of them. One is one that I love to retell, and it's about Madame Volino, who lived in San Antonio in the 1890s. She ran a brothel, and ended up basically going into town. And there at a park, she kind of stood under a tree to the back and away where she could hear a Methodist preacher field preaching. And in hearing of the message, she became convicted about the choices that she had made in life and what she was doing. And she chose a different way, that she would take all the money she had earned and saved up and would take the home that she had and make it into a home for children and women who were trying to leave that horrible, horrible way of life. It's today known as the United Methodist Children's Home in San Antonio, Texas. And because of her hearing transformation and that God had something else for her, everything she had became used as a blessing of God. Another story recently that I had shared with me when we were on this little trip. My dad wanted me to go with them to a men's breakfast, and so Aiden and I did, and we got to visit with my dad some, which was lovely. But the story was really surprisingly good, so I kind of added it in here, so I hope you enjoy it. How many of y'all have ever heard of the fishing vessel called the Galaxy? The Galaxy, it's a 180-foot fishing vessel. It went down and sunk in 2013 in the Bering Sea. So you have no reason to have heard of it, but there's kind of a neat story that went with what happened. They were in very stormy and rocky seas, and as is sometimes happens in those colder climates, a rogue wave kind of grew exponentially and kind of flooded the compartment so that a fire broke out on board. And immediately, as this fire was kind of beginning to rage, the captain, whose name is John Shoemaker, kind of noticed what was going on and how bad things could get. He had a crew of young people, most of whom had barely been trained and were on their first voyage. And so he ran through the flames to get to the radio room to call out a mayday. And then he went to the lowest point on the ship in its bowels and started helping as many people. Of the 28 passengers on board, 23 of these crew people were able to make it off, and all of them talked about how John made that possible due to his heroic efforts getting them off. He got them up to the top of it so that as the ship would go into those cold waters one way and then the other, that instead of trying to jump where the boat would hit them, they would wait till it rolled all the way off to get over and get them out. It's an amazing story of heroism. He had one more person who was lost on board and went down into the bowels of the ship and assumed that he would perish there. And suddenly the bulkhead tore open and a rush of water knocked him out, and he lived. He was the kind of person that would go into harm's way to help somebody else and to lead them to safety. Amazing. Do you know what he does today? He teaches courses to boat captains about how to keep people safe during natural disasters or horrific accidents at sea. You see, like what happened to him, that kind of experience of being a part of saving people led him to become now a person with life purpose who helps others find their way to safety. I wonder what happened to Zacchaeus when salvation visited his house. Did it find a home? Did it inspire a heart? Did it lead him to be a person who, with grace, looked for other people to include? You see, when I look at this story and I read it, I know and understand why Zacchaeus was looking for Jesus. I can know and understand why the crowd was there pressing up against Jesus, wanting a healing. I can fathom all the ways the crowd had and the challenges in the city. But what gets me every time was that Jesus saw and was looking for Zacchaeus, because he comes to save the lost and to help them be found. My friends, have you been found? Because the good news this morning is that if you look for Jesus, don't be surprised when he's staring right back at you, calling you ever closer to him. Know and understand that he will visit your home, not because of who you are or what you might be able to do, but because his grace abounds so greatly that he wants nothing less than every family of this earth to be brought and included in his welcoming and open arms. Yes, what you might do to try to make sense of the life you've had before might change the world. But oh, friends, it's because of Jesus. It's because of Jesus and that grace that is so great, nothing can stand in its way. And Lent, this season of the church we're in, this time of preparing for Easter, is about letting the grace of God into our heart through Jesus, so that indeed the love God is working in Jesus might win. Are you going the wrong way? Look for Jesus. He'll help you turn around. Amen.